Hi, this is Julie with a personal note before we begin. With this special episode today, I close a series of conversations I set out to record on the intersectional impact of gun violence for the Women Podcasters in Solidarity initiative. This one differs from the others in that it's a deeply personal redemption story, a story of a man who took the life of another human being through gun violence and has come out the other side committed to educating others so they don't make the same mistakes that he did. It's important to note that Will's perspective and journey is uniquely his own, that he takes a tremendous amount of personal responsibility and focuses his change efforts on building emotional intelligence. Will also shares that there is systemic racism, a justice system that is not always just, and environmental conditions that contribute to the issue of gun violence. After listening to this conversation and exploring the links to Will's work, I hope you'll also spend some time with some of the other episodes I've recorded and with links I've included in the show notes to understand the big picture context beneath this deeply personal story, and to find your own path and commitment to dismantling systemic racism and gun violence. There is so much work to do. Hi, and welcome to Mother's Quest, a podcast for moms like me ready to live our own truly epic life. I'm Julie Neal, a life and leadership coach, community builder, writer, and mom to two high-energy boys who challenge me to grow into my best self. I'll be right there. Where was I? In the months leading up to a big milestone birthday, I decided it was time to stop sidelining my dreams and realize that I'm the hero of my own journey. I knew I didn't want to do it alone, so I created this podcast to learn from other moms on their own quest, so their words of wisdom and lessons learned could help light the way for mine. I created this podcast for myself. Come along with me, and you'll find some treasures of your own. As June comes to a close, a month with a focus on Father's Day and gun violence awareness, I'm honored to bring you an important conversation that touches on both themes with poet, speaker, advocate, and father Will Latif Little. As you'll learn in this episode, Will has a profound story to tell, one that began with an upbringing in a single-family parent home with his four sisters in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Without his father or a father figure, and impacted by his environment, Will began to venture away from the ideals he was shaped by in church, dropping out of high school in the 10th grade and becoming involved in the Philadelphia drug trade and a shooting that resulted in the death of a young man. This ultimately landed Will in prison for a 10 to 20-year sentence on a murder conviction at the age of 19. Before I share more about what happened next in Will's journey and what we explore in our conversation, I want to introduce this episode's dedication with someone who has become a friend and colleague, whose groundbreaking podcast, which I hope you'll subscribe to and explore yourself, illuminates so many issues and the wide range of experiences about being Black in America today. Here he is.
Hi, this is Vince from the Wild Black Podcast, and thank you so much for choosing to listen to the Mother's Quest podcast today. Julie makes such an impact with the topics she delivers, and today's no different. Today you'll hear from Will Latif with a significant message that made me think of the hero and villain that lives in all of us. Now, as strange as this may seem, that premise pushed me to dedicate today's episode to my father, whom I lost 10 years ago. Why? Good question. My father, by many people's standards, was a hero, but not to me. I'm also sure that to someone out there, he was a villain, but not to me. I dedicate this episode to him because both through his actions and his words, he taught me that there really are no heroes and there are no villains. And that's a good thing. The reality is that each one of us has heroic moments and villainous moments. And that's part of what makes us human. That's part of what makes us us. But now that I'm a father and I understand this even more, there are moments through parenting that my children probably see me as the villain. But I believe there are even more moments where they see me as the hero. I just hope that, much like my father, that at the end of my life, as I stand before the throne for my judgment, that I have had many more heroic moments than I have villainous moments. Because that's the test and the measure of a man, of a father, of frankly a good person. But anyway, again, I dedicate this episode to my father. I hope you all enjoy it. P.S. Dad, you were the best. You are the best. All I can even remember are your heroic moments. If as a parent I can be half as good as you were, then I've achieved my mission. I love you.
Vince, what an honor to share your voice, your podcast, and this beautiful reflective dedication for your father with the Mother's Quest community of listeners. The premise that we all have villainous and heroic moments in our lives, and the example of your father's impact on you in his full humanity connects deeply to the story of Will's life and the father he has become. Fatherhood was a seminal experience for Will. It was the knowledge of becoming a father during the time of his incarceration that became a catalyst for Will to turn his life around, motivating him to get his GED and educate himself through reading books that enlightened him. Through that process, Will says that what he thought was passing the time actually helped him become a man. After 10 long years, rehabilitated and reformed, Will was released from prison to start a new life. As a free man, but challenged by the difficulty of gaining steady employment due to his criminal record. Not wanting to go back to a life of drug dealing and gun carrying, Will decided to invest in a career as a barber. In his spare time, he developed a program called Poetry in Motion that would show young and older people how to overcome obstacles in life. And he began to share his story far and wide, taking the stage at a TEDx event, at public meetings where he advocates for education and emotional intelligence trainings, mentoring in the Philadelphia prison system, and revealing his experience in a new award-winning documentary called Behind the Bullet. It was important to me that this not be an interview about Will's transgressions, but about his whole life, his full humanity, and his wisdom across all the epic guideposts. I learned so much from my time with Will about the power of resilience, a strength passed from his own mother, the enduring possibility of forgiveness and redemption, the power of mindset, and about pushing through our discomfort, something Will challenged me to explore through the metaphor of running. Ultimately, this episode is about hope and transformation, and I hope you'll be forever changed, as I have been, by your connection to Will and his story. I'm Julie Neal, and this is Mother's Quest. Will, welcome to the Mother's Quest podcast. I am really honored to have you here today.
Thanks for having me, Julie. I'm honored to be a part of what you're doing here, shedding awareness.
We are going to start with the first question that I ask every guest. Tell me a little bit about your own childhood and the impact that your mother had in shaping who you are today.
Well, my childhood I would say, was quiet because of me being an introvert, and just being an observer of life in general. Lived in a house with my mother, sometimes my grandmother, and I had 4 sisters, 3 older and 1 younger. So it was a female-dominated home. And for me being a male, trying to discover who I was, I didn't have that father figure or that male role model that I can look up to and say, one day I'm going to comb my hair, or I'm going to comb my beard, or I'm going to shave, certain things I'm going to do, work on the house, anything like that. I didn't have that. So for me, it was more so just thinking to myself, what can I do? And what I was influenced by. My mother, she was a hard worker. She influenced me about, in order to make it in life, you have to be a hard worker. In order to make it in life, you have to be able to balance things out on your own and be able to manage things. And also understanding that the fear that she had with living in general, the fear of living, some of the things she experienced in her life and her childhood, losing her mother at a young age, and then getting married at a younger age, at the age of 15 years old, and having children. I have to take care of 4 children at first by my father, and then take care of his brothers too as well, because they all were young. Just a lot of things that she had developed into, grown into from her experience. And me trying to understand the nature of her mentality and like things why she would do certain things, like why she would drink, why would she get drunk, not understanding the things she had been through, the traumatizing things she had been through, life at her young age, and trying to still fend for herself and for her children in a new city, in a big city, fast city like Philadelphia. And we were born in North Carolina. We moved here because my mom was she had to run away from my father from being so abusive to her. Just me coming here at 6 months, I didn't know none of that stuff at first. I became like 4 and 5 and 6 years old. I was in my own world, basically in my own world, just trying to figure things out, discover things. I was real inquisitive about life. And I wondered certain things like, why people die. I was thinking like that. Why people die? Why people live? Why people do evil things? How can you die for so many different things? A bite from a spider or hit by a car or things of that nature. This is how my mindset was. We was real religious. My grandmother who passed away, she was a big preacher in Virginia. Her name was Ruth Brown. My mother was real religious, but not spiritual. And she always sent us to church, but she wouldn't go. We kind of grew up in the church too. That was kind of like probably a safe haven. We moved all over, because my mother was always trying to make a way to take care of these children. So she couldn't always pay the bills on time. So we always wound up relocating. So we lived unstable lifestyle as children. I got a chance to live in all parts of Philly, and then go to all different schools in Philadelphia and had different experiences, faced different bullies in every school I went to. I had to fight somebody. My mother didn't know the extent of, by her moving to different parts of the city, how it affected me or how it affected my sisters. But that's stuff things I kept to myself because I didn't think she could really help me in any kind of way or protect me because she was a female, and me being a boy on my own, I just had to, man up. So this kind of mindset I developed being around in a single parent home, living with my mother and being an introvert at the same time.
Yeah. Wow. I'm struck by how resilient your mom must have been to move through all the things that you've just described. I have this real sense of who you were as a young boy, this introverted and inquisitive soul is the word that's coming to me. Another curiosity I had as you were painting this picture of who you were, is there a moment you remember from your childhood where you felt like you were doing something that really brought out your strengths or just felt right for you or easy?
The only thing that I really felt that brought out my strengths were times that when I was in schools and guys was getting bullied by the bully, and I would always step up to protect them. I would get into fights and like that with people, but it was all because of I didn't like nobody being bullied. And because of my mother always being in fights with her boyfriend, it's something that it grew on me, the fact that I hated people take advantage of people. I can remember one time I was in 3rd grade. There was a black guy who was taking advantage of a little white kid. He was small and he was real shy, just like me, So he was always bullying this kid every day. So I got tired of seeing it. I jumped in it and I started fighting the guy for him, for the little kid. So one day I went for Halloween and I went in this neighborhood that I never went into to go trick-or-treating and knock on the door. And when I knock on the door, there's a guy who was in my class. The white kid was in my class. And he said, Mommy, that's the guy right there. That's the guy right there who helped me. That's the guy who helped me. That's the guy who helped me in school. And she's like, oh, so glad. I'm glad you helped my son in school. The guy's not messing with my son no more, et cetera, et cetera. So I didn't think nothing of it after that, but it was a real exciting moment for me right there to be appreciated for doing something like that. Stuff like that. Just caring for people and getting the response that the impact, you'll never know what kind of impact you have on somebody's life until they really share that with you or get the opportunity to share with you.
Building from this thread about your impact, I want to shift to talking about what I call living an epic life. And for me, epic has 2 connotations. The first is this idea that we can step into being the author of our story and really live like our own hero or heroine's journey. And then epic is also an acronym mnemonic for the guideposts that I think help us to live that life when we're raising our children. The people that I interview often have different experiences of this idea of a hero's journey. I'd love to hear, like, to what degree do you feel like that does or doesn't resonate with you? And what are the ways in which you have built from who you were as a child to having an impact in your life today?
Well, I think more so, I don't look at it as being a hero. I look at it as taking on a responsibility that I think we all have as human beings for one another. Just looking at some of the ills or some of the problems of today and some of the problems I had in my own life growing up that made it so hard, is the fact that we were unaware. We lacked knowledge, about life. And because of the simple fact that no one is teaching life, I mean, you teach academics, you may teach a little financial literacy here and there in certain areas. But the thing is that people just don't know how to live, and just because I'm in the streets or in prison or being in corporate America around other people who have other issues and problems, it may not be a money problem, maybe just an emotional problem that you dealt with when you were younger. You're traumatized by something that affected you or that happened to you, and maybe the fact that you don't have money, you live in a private situation and everything that the world's surrounded by money. So you got to have money for everything. So it puts you in the state of mind that you're not worthy. And some people want to commit suicide because they don't feel like they fit in or they're worthy of certain things. And my thing is, my journey I was put in situations, I believe, because of my youth and how I was a thinker and I was a reflector, how I always try to figure things out about life. Now I'm growing up to be a man, and the experience that I had that I learned from a lot is now shedding that information and shedding that light on people and show them how to look at life in a more optimistic perspective opposed to a pessimistic way of living.
What were those most pivotal moments for you in your life that have shifted you into how you see your role in your life today?
I mean, it started when I was young, but a lot of things I did not know about life in general. So I was still on the confused side of things. And then once I started going into the streets, and I thought that, I wouldn't live past 20 because of some of the things I was doing, spiraling out of control. I was seeing that in my environment or having those same conversations with people who didn't have a dream or a vision for themselves, for the future. Mainly just the worst crime you can commit, taking someone's life. I knew I was in trouble when that happened. I knew I let my anger get the best of me and the worst came out of me, So now I'm sitting down reflecting on that in a cell, having a son, too, a human being I have to raise, I have a life that I have to raise, I'm responsible for more so than my own life. And then made me just really think about, how his life's going to be, what I have stored for him, and how can I help him be able to journey through life without having to go through all the pitfalls that I had to go through because I didn't have a father. So for me, I have to figure it out. I wanted to figure life out. I had to do that on my own. And I knew I could. For some reason, I knew I had the ability innately inside of me, like we all do. If we focus on it, we pay more attention to ourselves. God has given us that gift already. It's just that it goes unrecognized because we're distracted by so many things in the world. And being in that level of seclusion inside the prison, you have a lot of time to just sit in there and think and reflect and ponder, wonder, imagine, create. What your brain is used for, using your brain to the highest degree or level, that you can really reach at that time, in that moment, and in that space that you never used it before, So that put me on that journey to find my purpose. What is my purpose in life? Why am I still here? Why my friends got murdered and died or in jail for life? And I did more stuff than they did. So it's now time for me to wake up and say, look, I got to take advantage of the gift that God has given me, by giving that gift back, giving life back to people who actually are going through the same thing I was going through. That's how I became more of an extrovert when it comes to speaking. I had to come out of my shell of being quiet and not being sociable to now become this new person that I'm able to articulate myself, my feelings, my stories, that it may relate to someone else's story and may inspire them some kind of way. Let them see life in a different perspective so they can start doing the things they need to do in order to help humanity and grow. So that's how I became on this mission and on this journey.
What would you say in one sentence is your mission now? What are you most on a quest for?
I'm on a quest just to help people, see life in a better perspective that they're seeing it now. If it's in a worse perspective, like their vision is not that clear or they don't know why they're here, and if I can help them out just by sharing a little bit of my story and sharing my awareness, my knowledge, then, that's my mission, because I've been doing it for years. I've been doing it for like 24 years now.
Wow.
I've been seeing people, grown. They're grown people now, like fathers, and they have children that I have talked to. Like, guys I've been in prison with. I mean, like I seen a guy I was in prison with. He just got out of prison. He did 25 years. I just ran into him at a skating rink. And he was like, "What's up, man? What's going on?" Latif, as they call me. "Hey, Latif, what's going on?" He gave me a hug and embraced me. And that's all because of what I taught him when I was in jail. And that was when we were young. We was like 22, 23 years old. And we're in our 40s. I mean, and that just, he reflected on all that. Like, "Man, what you was telling me, et cetera, et cetera. I feel good to see you. I didn't think I would run into you again. I read about you in the papers and things you're doing. I want to do stuff like that myself while I'm out here now." So it was just inspiring those guys, to show them that, you can change. Society will accept you back, but it's going to be hard work, basically. I mean, you can be better. You can live up to your full potential. And that gives them the hope and inspiration that they need, because if you don't see change, you're not going to change. You think everything is always the same. If you're seeing someone else that can do something, they become successful at doing, changing their life around and not being in the streets, not carrying guns, not selling drugs, not doing nothing illegal, not robbing and stealing people. Like, well, I had the potential to be that way too. Then the kids, a lot of young kids that I went to the elementary school and spoke to them about the importance of education. I dropped out of school in the 10th grade. I talked to them about the importance of education, the importance of knowledge, and how your life can be 10 times better. The more you know, the better your life will be. The less you know, the worse your life will be. And just give them the scenario, how that plays out, in their life, and make that important for them. Make that a number one priority when they go to school, is to get educated. Because by the time you're 22 years old, 23 years old, 25 years old, I mean, you're struggling now, your mother's struggling now. I mean, your mom on drugs or on crack, or you're probably in jail, or he's dead. I mean, you can make your life a whole lot better under the circumstance that you're in. I don't think this has to be your life. This is not the narrative of your life. You can do much better. And just by showing them that from here to California, a lot of guys in California, and I spoke to a group home of kids, and one young boy was like, "Man, you always out here in California from Philadelphia, and you're a felon." He said, "I have a felony. I thought my life was over." People told me I would never get another chance in life. So now that I see you, I mean, I see that I can do better.
One of the things that I have listened that you've created in sharing your story is the TED Talk that you did, the TEDx talk. A lot of the threads that you're describing about your life and these various pivotal moments, the ones that were really damaging and then the ones that really inspired you to step into your best self, are told in that. And we'll make sure we link to it in the show notes. But one of the moments that you do describe in that and that you just mentioned is the moment that you found out that you were a father and you were in jail at the time, and how much that became a catalyst for you to change your life from within. So I want to move into the first guidepost, E, which stands for engaged mindfully with our children, and hear a little bit more from you about how, from that moment when the knowledge of your child changed you forever, what have you learned about how to be engaged with your children?
Well, I mean, when I was in the streets, running, ratchet, I knew that I wanted the son only to leave something here for my mother. I mean, because I didn't think I was going to live. But because I was rescued through the system, I was able to be there and experience my child being born, not really actually being in the hospital, but seeing him when he come out of the hospital, a few days in the hospital, and then actually just fixing my eyes on him, holding in my hands, my arms. It just opened up a whole door of possibilities and imagination and the things that I had to do so he won't go down the same route that I went down, living in a single parent home with his mother. She's a young mother. I'm a father, young father. I'm still in prison. But now what can I do to actually help him? I mean, even though I'm not there physically, only do a visit, I'm there physically, but I'm not there to see everything, his first steps and everything else. And, he's crying at night and wake up at night. So all the things I imagine in my mind, I'm thinking about while I'm holding him and walking through the parks and taking him to school, the things that I need as a kid from my father. Teach me how to play basketball, how to ride a bike, talking about when I reached the age of puberty, the transition my body go through and stuff like that. So now I'm like, I got to be able to help my son get through this life, you know what I'm saying? Because it's dangerous out there. And I was like, just sit back and reflect on my life when I was in prison. Like, how can I help him? And I was like, I got to change my life first in order to give something to him of value. So when I was released, the first time just seeing him on the streets, and he was like 9 years old, he was a big boy. And it was like an overwhelming event for me. I mean, now I'm here with my son. I'm not going to leave aside. I'm going to raise him to the best of my ability. And I told his mother, I said, look, I can take on the responsibility, even though I'm working a little odd job, making $6 an hour. Like, I live with my sister right now, but I know you done been through so much just raising this boy on your own. Right now, he's at a time that, he probably needs his father in his life more. And so let me take him for now and just raise him up, the best of my ability. And I can try to teach him and really get back into his life because he really didn't know me, because he wasn't around me. Just kind of find out just a lot of things that, he did was just like me. He's an introvert himself. He's real quiet. Nothing bothers him. He don't let nothing bother him. Just having my sons in my life, period, and them being close to each other, being close brothers. And just now, when they need me for something like, oh, Dad, I need you to help me in my car. Oh, Dad, pick me up from work. Or, oh, Dad, I got this problem with this girl. Just being able to be there. And for me, it's like I didn't have that. So it's like, this is what it's like. This is what it's like to have a father in your life.
Yeah. And now you're the father to more than one son. Who are your children now?
I have 3 sons and 3 daughters. They're really good kids. They're really good children, real smart. And a lot of things I see in them, I see in myself, and a lot of problems they may have, I can nurture those problems with them. A lot of times you see your children doing certain things that you dislike. You acknowledge that that's used to be you when you were younger. That was you in your lazy days of immaturity. So you won't be so hard on them at a certain time because sometimes as parents, we forget that we did the same thing, at their age. We made the same decisions, some of the same choices at their age. So even being overprotective about your children being in the streets and fearing, like, hopefully that won't happen to them, especially among young Black boys, So I'm like, all right, well, I got to teach them how to deal with police officers, how to control their mannerism. Like, one of my sons, he's real introvert, but kind of has a temper like I had when I was young. So I'm trying to teach him how to really manage his emotions and anger. My oldest son, the one I had when I was in prison, he's more quiet and laid back like me. So I see me and them and my characteristics and them a lot. It's really, really good to just witness that and see that and to be able to teach them and show them. Like, I teach all the kids around the neighborhood. So my children come first, even though I may reach out to other people's children, have programs and mentoring programs for other people's children around there, include my children in that midst with them too as well. I'm always focused on my children and their well-being. And then also, just building, showing them that, how your dad came from nothing and how they read my book, when they read my book and like not seeing that part of me. I mean, in life right now, my young life, they don't see none of that residue in my life today. So that's kind of rewarding. My oldest son, the one I had when I was locked up, I wrote the book. He was probably like 17 years old then when I wrote the book. My nephew, he read the book and he's like, oh, your dad, he was out in the streets. He was crazy. I mean, they changed. My son's like, I don't believe that. I don't believe that story. He didn't believe the stories. But I didn't take it as negative. I took it as, okay, great. Because now he don't see none of that in me.
Yeah.
You don't see like me running the streets, carrying guns and being shot at and shooting at people. He don't see none of that in me. So obviously it was hard for him to believe because of my character today. I mean, so I took that as a compliment.
Well, I want to move into the next guidepost P, which stands for passionate and purposeful. And this is about the impact that you make in the world beyond your family. You just mentioned that you wrote a book. What are all the ways that you are showing up in the world and sharing your story and making a difference?
Well, like I said, I'm a community activist too as well. So I do a lot of community events talking about the issue of violence, talking about recidivism, talking about systemic problems in our community, visuals. So I'm appearing in a lot of places, in the prisons too as well, in the schools, City Hall here in Philadelphia, along with the politicians, talking about different issues that we got to try to change and fix in our community, having that voice. And just now traveling around the country and doing schools in California and Utah and places like that, going to prisons, different prisons, other places. But the TED Talk was the number one thing that got me out there because now I have people reaching out to me from India and Africa who actually listened to the TED Talk and was inspired by it. Like a group of students in Africa was inspired by the TED Talk. So it was reaching far and wide. And I had a documentary that was done by Fox News 2015 that went viral on the Fox News Facebook network. And it also won the Emmy Award for Best Media Documentary in 2015. That information, that story got out there. It was a real powerful story of forgiveness, where the guy whose life I took, his brother forgave me for taking his brother's life after 20 years of plotting revenge and trying to take my life. And he just came to a level of forgiveness. Like I walked in the barbershop and said, look, man, I forgive you. And I didn't know who he was at the time. I never really tried to figure out who he was. I knew he was out there somewhere. But my mind was focused on just doing the right thing and not really falling back into that negative thought or feeling about someone looking for me to take my life. So I just trusted in God and just went on my path of redemption. That story took place and that happened. So now me and him, we kind of do talks at different places with kids and showing them the power of, resolution, the best resolution and healing and forgiveness and redemption, telling that story, which is a powerful story. And especially in the African-American community where you have a lot of revengeful deaths and shootings, people don't know how to forgive. And it's against the code. Like when somebody killed your brother, then it's automatic revenge. I mean, we still have issues with it, with him. I mean, not being around me sometimes. I understand that too as well. I'd be more empathetic towards the situation. But no, he's trying to grow. And I think that I have an impact on his life too as well, as inspiring him to make the change that he can make, come from the streets. Like we both are street guys, So him coming from the streets, trying to change his life and not live up to that old reputation. And having the heart to even say, I forgive you, when a lot of guys and his peers are saying, like, walk on the street and your brother's dead. I had to hear stuff like that, even from some of his family members, because he was a guy in the family that was the roughest guy and the toughest guy in the family. They thought that he would be the one to actually, try to take me out. But he came to forgiveness, so that was a real powerful thing for him. I acknowledge that with him too. Telling like, we had articles written up in paper so that people could see it and it inspired a lot of people on the street who thought about, killing somebody who took their sister's life or their brother's life, and we had talked to guys like that and showed them like there are better alternatives than pulling the gun out, There are better ways to solve disputes besides picking up a gun and putting your life in jeopardy and putting other people in your family life in jeopardy or putting yourself in prison, because people just don't think. There's let the emotions get the best of them. And that's why, just teaching that class on emotional intelligence is very important in a society where there's a lot of people who are hurting, who are just lost and just don't know where to go. Just spread my stories, spread my knowledge, just sharing it with the world to help people see life in a better perspective and, motivate them to be their best selves.
That story is incredible about the brother of the person that you killed. What's the name of that documentary?
The Power of Forgiveness, a South Philly story on YouTube.
We'll make sure to link to that. And then there's another documentary that you've been featured in that's coming out soon, right?
Yes, September 3rd, it will be streamed on Amazon and also on iTunes and Vudu, September 3rd. So it's called Behind the Bullet. Behind the Bullet is a very unique film that talks about the shooter's perspective. Most cases talk about the victim, most talk about gun control. Most films are talking about the people who've been victimized some kind of way, personally, directly or indirectly hurt by violence. But this documentary actually is bringing more awareness to actually a person who pulled the trigger and what they go through after pulling the trigger, whether it was legal or illegal. So we have 4 subjects, me being one of them. One of the stories is about a young lady who actually shot herself, tried to take her own life with a gun. Another one is about a young man who shot his brother and killed his brother by mistake by picking up a gun that was not secured when he was like 7, 8 years old. And he shot his 7-year-old brother and killed him. And now he's living with that for the rest of his life and how he's dealing with that. And another one is about an intruder, a person who tried to rob an older man for the guns he had in his house. And he wound up shooting one of them and killing one on his lawn. He's dealing with that every day of his life. Now still traumatized by that experience. So it's just showing the impact of how you may have a gun legally or illegally, but once you pull that trigger, what happens to you?
Yeah.
What happens to you? What the things you go through after that? And that's a topic that has not been discussed or talked about at all. And that's why I think we went to awards so far, to Film Fest awards. We was featured in the Film Fest, Slam Dance Sundance in Utah back in April, I believe. And just get a lot of attention right now. I guess once it gets streamed on Amazon and Vudu and iTunes, I think it'll bring more attention to and more awareness to the mentality behind the gun.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, when you were describing the fact that, in addition to sharing your story with, people in the community, that you also are showing up at City Hall. And I'm wondering, obviously gun control is such a huge issue right now, and violence, particularly more highly impacts communities of color. What is the number one thing that when you're going to City Hall that you are advocating for?
When I go to City Hall, It's more like I'm invited by the politicians to tell my story and what I'm doing in the community and how I'm working with youth for best practices in order for them to create a resolution to some of the problems that we deal with in our society. So it's mainly about gun violence and mentorship with the youth and how can we control the issue of violence in our community by away shootings and suicides and drug addictions in our community. But the gun control thing for me is more so controlling the mindset of the individual that may possess a gun legally or illegally and not making that their first choice to solve a problem or solve an issue. Because of so many programs that we have in the city, a lot of the good programs get overlooked because of the powers that be or, politicking for money and signatures for people to come to their program that's not really helping fixing the problems of our youth today. And a lot of our problems are dealing with youth violence, not really adult violence, but youth violence, some road rage situations in the city. So a lot of times it's more so gun control, whereas though controlling the mindset. Some people won't think about picking up a gun to use it because even with me, like I'm a person who loved guns as a kid, as a teenager. I had like 5 guns in my house at one time, 5 different guns, and I carry a gun or sometimes I carry 2 guns on me on the streets, because of the lifestyle I live. With that gun, it's like more so, all right, now I got a sense of security. I got a sense of power that it gives you. And I can go anywhere in the neighborhood and I wish a person would say something to me. That kind of mentality. So if you have a gun, a lot of times, even if you possess a gun legally, I know a girl just had a gun. She just got in trouble for having a gun. Once she got the gun legally, I knew it would be trouble for her. So she's going to be in trouble with that gun because she carried it all around. She buried it. It's like on her hip. She walked around with it and developed a different kind of personality in her. Maybe she didn't see it, but I seen it. And I was like, why you carry your gun every day? She said, because I'm legal. I'm licensed to carry. I said, okay. I was like, I didn't want to tell her that gun was going to get in trouble because I didn't want that kind of dialogue with her at that time. But I was going to sit and wait and watch. And she went to the market and she was walking around shopping. And a guy said something to her. I don't know if she's an attractive woman, so I don't know if he tried to say something trying to get at her or come at her or to get a number or just being smart about her carrying a gun in the market around children. I had not been a police officer. So somehow they got into a dispute or something like that. And he kept following around, agonizing, antagonizing her. She took the clip out of the gun and then cocked the gun back and then put the clip back in, then put it back in a holster. So they seen that on camera, the market. So the market must have called the police because now she's putting everybody at risk. No, you can carry this gun illegally, but you don't have the mentality to carry a gun. You know what I'm saying? So the thing is now she got arrested. He got locked up. The guy may have pressed charges on him. The market banned him from coming to the market again. So there's more to it than just having a gun legally. It's understanding behind that gun, the mentality you got to have behind that gun in order for you to really possess a weapon. And when they get these guns out to anybody who don't have a criminal record. But anybody who commits a crime, it's sometimes their first time committing a crime with a gun.
I'm thinking about the next guidepost I invested in ourselves. And this is the guidepost about our own self-care and supporting our own growth and learning. I'm trying to better understand, how someone can have a right mentality to have a gun. Like full disclosure from my perspective, it's hard to imagine it is a vehicle for violence in my perspective. But I want to understand more from your perspective, how you hold that and how does one invest in themselves in terms of their own mindset and mentality that they could be in the presence of a weapon like that or in environments where there is a lot of violence and not resort to violence themselves.
Right, because it's more so a level of self-awareness and understanding the situation at the time. Sometimes we escalate problems because we have guns instead of de-escalating the problem. Yeah. Like for example, the shooting in the gas station shooting where the man approached the young kids who had the music playing up real loud, and if he didn't have a gun, you probably wouldn't approach them because you'd probably automatically assume if they run around playing rap music, they might have guns themselves. So you wouldn't approach that situation. You just let it be. There's only 5 minutes, pump gas, and you can just go about your business. You don't have to hear the music no more. But because you have a gun, you think, all right, now I got authority to say something because now I'm protected, And it's just that mindset is saying that, okay, I have power. I have the power, the illusion of power, that no matter what, I'm in control because I have a gun. And that's not always the case. That's why you have a lot of mass shootings from just regular citizens. Not people just gangbangers and people on the street, but just regular citizens who are able to carry the gun. They look at a situation as a threatening situation when sometimes it's not a threatening situation. person may not even have a gun or a weapon or anything of that sort. But you feel, because you have a gun, you can pull your gun out, you can talk where you want to talk, and you feel threatened by a person's fist. I mean, a person is going to swing on you or want to fight you.
Yeah.
And pull your gun out and really take their life. Not even thinking about shooting them in the leg. I'm going to shoot him in the leg and not going to hit him in a vital spot in his head or his chest. I just shoot him in the leg to stop him from coming at me. But you rather just, all right, now, I want that feeling of shooting somebody because I feel in danger. Like the stand your ground law, like in Texas.
Well, and you and I were talking about the fact that I interviewed Sabrina Fulton, the story of Trayvon Martin with George Zimmerman. I mean, the stand your ground law is also just one of those things that is really hard for me to understand as good policy to have because, I do think it invites escalation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also thinking so much, and I love your perspective about, police officers. Obviously, there's so many stories. And even in California where I live, there was just this week an off-duty police officer who ended up getting into an altercation with someone in a store who I think also had some disabilities. And he ended up shooting and killing that individual. What are your thoughts about, what needs to happen to get police officers to step more into de-escalation instead of escalating?
I think they need some really good emotional intelligence training.
Yeah.
For one, not just sensitivity training, but emotional intelligence training, because it's a stressful job, one. And a lot of officers are fearful for their own life. You could be an officer and know you got to approach this. You got to have a certain level of courage to be an officer, a police officer, one. But when you in a situation where, like some cops be getting shot down or gunned down, and that's like your life against their life. Like, back in the day, times have probably got more violent now than it was before. But, it should be a thing called halt or freeze. Now they don't use that terminology. They don't use those words. They just shoot. They ask questions later. Like it's old cowboy days. Shoot first, ask questions later. And a lot of these, shootings become from people who are not really armed with guns. That there's no threat. There's no sign of threat right there, but you can create a sign of threat.
Yeah.
So they have tactics on how to. It's sad for the good cops out there who's really trying to, uphold the law and stand by the oath they took as far as protecting and serving the community. But then you have those ones who are criminal selves. With a badge. So how can you really fight against that? We talk to officers all the time, commissioners and everything else that I'm friends with. But the thing is, you ask these children to step up and witness to guys who are shooting in your neighborhood. Who are killing your neighbors and friends. But it's only a one-way street because you're not stepping up and policing the police around you, that are corrupt, that that's setting guys up to go to jail or planting evidence. You're not stepping up. So it's a lose-lose situation. Nobody's winning. So we have a level of systemic racism that's still going on. I think it'd probably be right away with the 3 generations that pass away right now. After these 3 generations pass away, then I think it'll be more unified and more of a connection with just individual people. I don't think it'll be that much racism because the connection is growing, the unity is growing amongst younger people today, amongst white, black, Chinese, and different Asian. I think there's a lot of that old racial thinking is still out there amongst the seniors. Like now, I live in Philadelphia. It was a real racial town with Italians and blacks. I used to get chased by Italians when I was a kid. Walking through certain neighborhoods, with hockey sticks and stuff like that. But now when you drive around the neighborhoods, you see like Italian kids and black kids sitting on the corner playing, loafing, playing basketball together, coming to the barbershop, getting a haircut from black barbers. So now it's a more a unified thing. Without the level or the gravity of racism, because they don't see that in these younger generations.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about community because the last guidepost C stands for connected, and it is about being in community on our journey. And I was watching a Facebook Live of yours the other day where you were talking about you're a barber and, the power of the barbershop and how you have seen some of these changes you just referenced about different people coming together, even through your barbershop. What are your biggest lessons learned about how to build community?
Well, building community is basically building connection and having that relation with people in general that's in your community. Like restoring the village back is just about people knowing each other, and knowing what about and who they are, and how we can service each other. And that's the village. I mean, before, like back in the day when you were younger, you had that village. You had like the lady down the street can check you. But because of now, like in these times where neighbors don't know neighbors, so it's just a hood. It's not a neighborhood no more. It's just a hood, right? And people just mind their own business and nobody worry about nobody else's children. I mean, only very little people do that. And children are disrespectful to their parents, so they disrespect other people's parents too as well. And it's a matter, the ignorance is just escalated, and it's escalated by things we see on TV and music and video games and everything else. Is just who is raising your children, and the society is raising your children. And if the society raises your children, then you won't have no morals. The children won't grow up with morals at all. So you really have to store those morals inside your children. And the barbershop, I've seen it's the mecca of information. You talk about everything in there, the salons too. And we talk about politics, you talk about sports, you talk about building men. We talk about the violence that's going on in the community, talk about entrepreneurship. We have all kinds of men that come in there, doctors, professionals, politicians, regular kids on the street, hoodlums, drug dealers. Everybody comes to the barbershop, So you have a wealth of conversations and a wealth of information that makes you very aware of what's going on in your community.
Yeah. And there's something else that you're creating in the world that also seems to be building community and connection related to your poetry, which we haven't really talked about yet.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Poetry in Motion is my baby. I've been raising for like 15 years now. Mainly for me, it was like a therapeutic thing that I would do when I was in jail, to write down what I was feeling when I was going through certain things and releasing that energy out of myself so I won't be releasing in a violent way. So that's how I learned how to maintain and control and channel my anger to paper. And that paper became a mirror to me. It became a lens where I see myself, that self-reflection. And I tell people a lot of times, you look in the mirror every day and look at your outer appearance, how your hair look, how your face look, and how your clothes look on you. But you never take time out to look at that mirror of the self, the self-reflection mirror. And that's what you tell yourself, what you're writing down. You're going through certain things in life and articulating that poetry and turn into poetry, being able to express that in front of 10 people or 10,000 people, and somebody relate to that story, you have inspired them. You just inspired them in your story. To let them know that you're not the only one that's going through it. You found a way through it and you made it out of it. And you persevered and you became this strong. So creating that group of people, I had like 12 people. Now I have like 10 people in my group now. People love the show. They love it. Why? Because you get value out of it. It's not just entertainment, it's edutainment. So I make sure the show is bringing something of value that will help them think, be more thought-provoking in the audience, make them cry because of some of the raw material that people write about their life that is really real, that they're going through, and they can relate to that. So we have people in the audience crying sometimes. So we changed it up and made some comedic skits, whereas though we can bring the laughter back out of them, make them feel good about themselves again. And then we try to close out with a powerful message with, I will not lose. I will not lose. I will not give up. I will not quit. I will not stop. And people will leave with that inspiration. So when they leave, it's not like they leave in a movie or amusement theater or any other kind of play or event. They leave in a poetry motion event, whereas though I just seen a whole dynamic of diversity on a stage of art. Performance and heartfelt and heartwarming that I have not experienced before. And now I'm living with that same energy and motivation to go back and be inspired by it and inspire my family, my children.
First of all, what you're creating is incredible. I'm thinking about Lindsay McCarthy, who is our mutual friend who introduced us. And I asked in my community yesterday if there was a question. And Lindsay's question for you was, would you share a little bit of one of your favorite poems and let us know what's most meaningful to you about it?
Okay, so I'm going to share this poem. It's a 2-minute poem, but it's a real story. A lot of poems I write is real, but my life was someone else's. And this story is one I always use when I go around and speak. And it's called Look Into His Eyes. And Look Into His Eyes is about a young man that I met when I first came home from prison. And I wanted to give back to the community and start helping young men navigate their way. And I ran into a 12-year-old boy, I think it was 12 or 10, at 10 o'clock at night in front of a restaurant. He was begging for money. We had a conversation. I was like, what you need money for? He said, I need money to North Philadelphia. We in South Philly. He wanted to go to North Philadelphia at 10 o'clock at night. So I kind of found that strange. I said, all right, let's go in the store with me and I'm going to give you the money. So I went in my pocket and got the money out, $2. I said, I'm going to give you the money, but now I want you to tell me the truth because I want you to think you told me a lie and got money out of me. I know you're lying, so tell me the truth, but you got the money already. So he said, all right, I want to buy some weed. I want to buy some smoke. I said, all right, okay, cool. Thanks for your honesty. And I took him outside. I said, look, I said, see the guy on the corner over there? I said, yeah. I said, see the guy on the car, leaning on the car? Yeah, I said, they all get high off of dope, off of heroin. Right? He said, yeah, I don't do that stuff. I said, look, they started off smoking weed. I went to school with those guys. They all started smoking weed first. So if you want that to be your future, then you can go buy that weed with that $2. If not, then go home. So I left him with that message, think about something. So after that few days, I was inspired by that story, and I started writing a poem called Look Into His Eyes. And here we go. When I looked into his eyes, I seen his father wasn't there. And when I looked into his eyes, I seen his mother didn't care. When I looked into his eyes, I saw death and destruction. And when I looked into his eyes, I saw a suicidal button. But before I looked into his eyes, I sat him down in a chair. And he said he needed money to get him from here to there, but was his mother really there? Was his pop really working? Then I looked into his eyes and seen this little kid was hurting. So I thought to myself, like, what's my position? Because I want to give him money, but the way he kept on twitching, he was acting kind of funny. So I said, is it weed or is it crack? He said, no, I need some money to get me there and back. I looked into his eyes and said, the truth you're not sharing. He looked at me with a smirk like, man, why'd you even caring? I said, I know the story, oh too well. When I was your age, I used to use it myself. See, I was a fatherless child. I was raised by the streets. I made grilled cheese sandwiches over kerosene heat. I was a high school dropout. I experimented with drugs. I did petty thefts and robberies with the neighborhood thugs. See, I was a hustler on the block. I dipped and dodged from the cops until I got caught and that judge sentenced me in court. Now I'm back on the street to set some light on the truth. I'm here to bring hope to America's own youth. He said, that's good and all, but why is me you want to help? I said, when I looked into your eyes, I saw an image of myself. Thank you.
I have chills listening to that. Did you ever run into that man again?
I have no idea who he is right now.
Yeah.
After that day, I don't know who he is.
And when you recite this poem or you think about it, what most comes to you?
Well, I think about him. Hopefully he's doing well. Not in prison or not dead, somewhere on the street. I think about the impact that it has on the audience when I'm reciting it, how they're looking and how they're resonating with it. People love that poem. All over the country, they love it. So that's what I'll be thinking about.
Thank you for sharing it with us. We're at the end of our conversation, but hopefully not the end of our connection together. The thing we're going to close with is acknowledging anything that we each are taking, any insights or maybe new clarity from this time together. But before we do that, you have the opportunity to give me and anybody who's listening some kind of a challenge, something that will support us in our own epic lives or maybe help others to live a more epic life. What would you like to challenge us to?
I'd like to challenge you to a run, right?
Ooh.
Because run is a physical, mental challenge, and it's all dealing with self-awareness. It's not really just running for the muscles and losing weight, but it's more so engaging your self-awareness, your limited beliefs. And the run is basically understanding the language of the body and the language of the mind. Because feelings are the language of the mind, the body, and thoughts are the language of the mind. So when you're running and you already have, like I said, I never ran before, I don't run often, or I run a lot.
I have never gone for a run.
Right. So when you're running, you're going to have some self-defeating thoughts. I'm telling you to give up. It's going to tell you to quit. It's going to tell you to stop running. It's going to tell you did enough already. Your ankle going to start hurting. Your lungs going to start feeling funny. Your chest going to start pumping really hard. In that moment, it defines uncomfortability. And that's where you grow at. You grow when your body's uncomfortable. You grow when your mind is uncomfortable. So when you challenge yourself to this run, you start living your life and you continue to do this constantly over and over again. When I think about doing a new project, I think about running as far as I can go. Because I'm challenging myself to get past my limited beliefs and what I think I can do. When I know we can do more. See, a lot of people have limited beliefs. They say, I'm going to go here and I'm going to do this. I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm just going to have 4 buildings in real estate, or I'm going to be a singer and I'm going to sing in my neighborhood. But we can reach far beyond what we think we can. And that's just shaping the mindset to understand that you can reach your full potential if you develop the mindset for that. And that physical challenge will help you do that.
Thank you. You are probably the only person that would get me to say yes to going for a run. So I look forward to seeing what that uncovers. I will really hold this metaphor you're inviting me to think about of where it feels challenging or like something I don't want to do, or I'm feeling the discomfort, to imagine pushing past my limiting beliefs.
And push past that and watch how you feel afterwards.
Okay, so it's a 2-part challenge. It's go for the run with that mindset and then reflect afterwards on how we feel.
Yes.
Pushing through. Thank you. Well, I want to acknowledge you for some of the gifts that I received in this conversation. First of all, thank you for taking the time and being so open and honest about your journey and answering all my deep, kind of sometimes funny questions. What I see in you and I'm taking with me is the power of resilience, starting with your own mother and all that she had to hold while she was raising you, but then in how you moved through your own resilience in your childhood, when you were in prison, when you came out, through your fatherhood, through the work you do today. The power of forgiveness and redemption, how much you see, not only inside yourself, but how you see yourself in others and how you see others in you. And the importance of pushing ourselves past limiting beliefs and really connecting to our own emotional intelligence. So those themes are going to be sitting with me, and I'll be carrying them to when I go on the run. Thank you for all of that.
You're welcome, Julie. You're welcome.
What are you taking from this conversation?
Just reflecting all over again on the story and the things I'm doing, just me shedding the story, shedding the light on some of the questions that you may have asked me to make me go deeper into that time in my life, whereas I can reflect on it again and just keep reiterating the positivity that comes out of that, the push that I have to continue to strive forward to help myself and help other people in life in general. This work is rewarding, but it's also hard. It's also a struggle. So you see that people are actually grateful for what you offer or what you bring to the table, then it gives you the motivation to keep going. So a lot of that helps you continue on this journey and your purpose and your mission. Keep going and not stop until you drop.
Well, I send so many wishes for your voice and your gifts and your story to reach people far and wide. And I have so much faith that it will.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much for coming along with me on this episode of the Mother's Quest podcast. I hope this conversation sparked something that will help you live your epic life. If you'd like to get show notes and learn more about the Mother's Quest community, head over to mothersquest.com. And while you're there, I would love it if you would follow the prompts to subscribe, leave a review, and help us spread the word. I want to end with some words to help light the way on your quest. Seize the day. Love your people. Honor your gifts. Until next time.